Jeff Peters. I run global business development here at Esri, and I have the privilege of introducing you to a gentleman that I've met over the last week, who I see as a technologist, a person that's doing real digital transformation within his organization, and a visionary. And when I would come to these conferences, or I would go to conferences, I was always looking for that nugget, that presentation that I could learn from, take notes, really internalize the real work that's being done in other organizations, and you're in for a treat. Because the work that he's done as the Chief Information Officer and Head of Client Technology at Savills is transformational. And I've been in the technology, I've been a technologist for over 20 years. I know innovation when I see it, and you are going to be interested, excited, and frankly blown away by the work that he has done inside of Savills, and you're gonna learn a lot from the things that he's gonna share this morning. So is Patrick here? Yeah, good morning. I'd like to join me in welcoming Patrick to the stage.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for, wow, that's a fantastic introduction. No, you set a low bar for me today. No, it's wonderful to be here, and I am Patrick McGrath. I'm the CIO of Savills. I run our technology across the Americas, and really enthusiastic about what we're doing. It was a great lead-in conversation that we had from Marianne and John. I am fully in the trenches on what I would call a digital transformation, and I love that McKinsey always finds a great way to kind of take it up a notch, right? It's digital reinvention, according to McKinsey. But so for those of you that don't know, Savills is a global property services company. We do about $1.8 billion in global revenue across 600 plus offices overseas and in the Americas. We cover a variety of service lines. So we have a property management business. We have a residential brokerage business. We are not the biggest commercial brokerage business, but we don't think the world needs the biggest, needs the best. And I grew up in the US business, which was formerly called Studley. You saw the prior logo. We just went through a big brand transformation this year. We're now called Savills. Julian Studley founded my organization in 1954 in New York on the premise that occupiers needed zealous advocacy and best-in-class consultancy. And that's at the DNA of kind of who we are in the Americas, and important to think about kind of when we thought about who we want to be from a technology and innovation perspective. Interesting comment that came up, I'm hearing a lot, what keeps you awake at night? So I grew up at the organization. I've been here for 17 years. I've had a variety of different roles. I came from the business side, so I'm not your typical technologist, but I am very passionate about technology. And I actually had the opportunity to run the post-merger integration of our Studley business when we sold to Savills in 2014. And I did that for 3 years. Technology and data were the key and sort of cornerstone of us doing that successfully. I watched over those 17 years the transformation in terms of the tools, and the tools becoming a lot easier for folks like me to use to effectuate these transformations. But at 3 years in, I sat with the global CEO, and he said to me, what would keep you awake at night if you were me? And I said, our digital and technology strategy, because if we don't successfully build the brokerage platform for the future, I think somebody else will do that for us. And I want to make sure, I grew up at this organization. I'm passionate about this organization. I want to make sure that there's a platform for the next generation. So he said to me, great, why don't you go do that for us? And I stepped into the CIO role here in the Americas about 1.5 years ago. And one of the first things that I really had to do was set the context for the key stakeholders across the organization as to why I felt that this was so critically important for us, that this area of investment and resource deployment was critical and needed to be a focus at the C-suite across the entire company. So I'll start out with a similar quiz to one earlier, but frequently in this conversation, I found this slide to be a little bit helpful to set the context. How many folks in the room have used the app on the left-hand side of this screen, the taxi cab tracker app, by show of hands. Helen, you are the one person in the room. There's always like one or two outliers, but you're a very unique person. I appreciate that you've used the taxi cab tracker app. If I ask the question, how many folks in the room have used Uber, by show of hands? Virtually everybody has. And it's probably not a question of whether or not you've used it, it's a question of how many times in a day you use it at this point. To me, this is an important differentiation because Uber is not an app. Uber changed the way the world moves. And they did so by rethinking the business model of transportation in the context of interconnected devices, big data, on-demand services, location-based technology, payment technology, and wrapping it in a beautiful, magical user experience. Companies that are doing this successfully are taking over former industry leaders at an incredible pace. And to me, that was the opportunity that we had as an organization. And if you look at the data supports this, right, in terms of market cap transitions that are happening across these established industry verticals. You're seeing not just, the Amazon stories, and calling Amazon a retailer at this point is kind of a joke, right? Amazon's a content distribution, content production company. It's a multimedia company. So for Walmart to pivot is going to be difficult to kind of get into these new spaces that Amazon has built off the back of being originally an online bookstore, right? Tesla, despite Elon's ups and downs in the market cap variation there, they have done some pretty amazing things in terms of market cap around industry leaders like GM, and I know GM's still a great company. We do, pleased to see that they're doing some geospatial work with Esri. And Uber rethought the whole paradigm, right? They rethought how people move, and they overtook Tesla. So the speculation is over the next 10 years, these industry-wide transitions are going to happen in 4-year increments. And to me, this was really important to set the table. This is the opportunity. If we as an organization can rethink how we do commercial brokerage and change the world of commercial real estate, we have the opportunity to overtake our bigger competitors. But likewise, the downside is, if we don't do it successfully, somebody else is going to do it for us. And by the time somebody else comes, it's usually too late. So this was important context when I set out on this journey as CIO to think about how we were going to do it. And what we did is we really rethought our approach as a company. We're not a technology company, but we do think that bringing together the best thought leadership with the best data and the best third-party technology will give us a real advantage. And we also believe that devices aren't going away anytime soon, and people, including our customers, want to have that on-demand personalized experience through apps. So we created what we believe is the fastest, most agile app creation platform across our business, and we did it with partners like Esri, and we did it with the intent to stay true to our DNA as an organization, which is to represent the occupier's interest within the greater commercial brokerage business, right? We believe that they do need the best tools. They need this advisory and consulting services. So everything we do within this prototyping and testing environment and ultimately client technology platform is really with the intent of the occupier, and we've done that globally. So we deployed this past year what we call Knowledge Cubed. It's our client technology platform. We use partners like Esri to bring to life apps that we deploy to these occupier clients across the globe. And I'm going to show you a couple of the projects that we've been working on with Esri over the last 18 months. The first one, we talk about bringing together data and thought leadership. And the first one we call Market Alpha. So what we did with Market Alpha is we really piggybacked off an experience that we had with our clients where many of our clients are across multiple geographies. They're trying to think about the right location, think about the different attributes of a given marketplace with regards to different locations that they're considering, access to talent, access to labor, commutation patterns, public transportation patterns. We tapped into 3D data sets. We paired that up with our pre-existing inventory information around availability, and we gave some power within the app to filter through that and explore that inventory set. And because we did this in an open architecture and data model, we have the ability to very quickly bring in new data partners. So you're going to see an integration where we're using Esri front end. We've got our inventory effectively powering the different buildings and the filters, and the team in the room that developed this, I should give them a shout out. David and Kathy, you just stand up and give them a round of applause. We've also brought in a partner, Matterport, that does interior scans. So now effectively our brokerage and consulting teams can have conversations across geographies in real time with their clients, whereas this may have taken a full commitment of a team to come in market, maybe spend 2 days exploring a market, et cetera. It's a very powerful configuration of third-party technology powered by Esri with the data that we're bringing to bear, as well as data from other facets like Matterport. Really excited about Market Alpha. This is another app that this same team worked on. So we, again, have a focus on the occupier. So we think scoring markets as to whether or not they're favorable in regards to a negotiation process for a tenant or for a landlord is a valuable attribute that we want to showcase. So we've color-coded markets, again, using Esri as the front-end polygon mapping interactive map. We can showcase and dive into a specific market. You can see those scores. And then we've actually also linked in, with the help of Helen and some of the templates that she had, market demographics showing the tapestry that is available to a customer in that specific location. So these are just 2 apps. Again, we've got an incredible opportunity to innovate here. We talked a lot, John and Mariana, about being close to the customer. This, to me and to our team, is the best way to get close with the customer. We see how they're using these apps. We have conversations about how we can continue to develop these apps for them. And if they're not useful, they're not adopted, and we can actually move our resources to the apps that are successful and getting traction with customers. So with that, Jeff, I think we're gonna have an additional conversation, but hopefully a little bit of context around how we're doing things. Thank you.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Earlier,
Hopefully I have an answer.
I'm sorry?
Hopefully I have an answer.
Yeah, no problem. So earlier, Mariana had on her slide that customer-shaped strategy.
Yes.
And I heard the same thing in the beginning of your talk, that you were really interested in thinking about how it was really about the customer experience, and that led you to some of your initial investments in initial apps. Can you talk a little bit about how that's sort of driven your direction or drives your thinking?
Yeah, so I think one of the unique attributes that I bring to the role is the fact that I grew up in the organization. I worked on the business side. So I do have the privilege of being in the room in our presentations and working directly with clients. And I think that as you're thinking through what the customer needs, that's an incredibly important perspective to bring to the table and to put into your development process. And it's not necessarily the most intuitive perspective for folks that are maybe working more on the technology and data side, right? Like they get excited and stimulated, and we have this in our data science team with very complex visualizations, right? And I'll frequently say, listen, our end user is a 60-plus-year-old. So for them to understand that level of complexity and not just have like a simple, crisp number is kind of missing the mark in terms of what the customer expectations are. But generally, our whole design is to really, as Mariana hit on, like be hyper-focused on the customer. We think we know who our customer is. We think we have a unique alignment with the customer in terms of how we built the brokerage platform here in the Americas, and these tools are really meant to bring a better level of consulting and advisory through that platform that's focused on them.
Right.
Even the analytics that we talked, like that 3D visualization, we're working on arbitrage pricing opportunities across the marketplace based on viewshed corridors. And that's not necessarily something that the other big brokerage firms are going to feature because they've got landlord or asset management relationships. And we know who our customer is. It's the occupier. We want to bring as much power to their deployment of people and property across the globe as possible.
Yes. So we talked a little bit previously about how you sort of your philosophy on how you are going to help drive adoption adoption? Because ultimately, these things need to be adopted. And you shared a little bit about the BaaS model. Can you talk a little bit about? Because I'm sure for many in the room, they experience similar things. It's great to have a technology vision. But you also have to avoid that, build it and they'll come model. I can tell you, even internal to Esri, as we're pushing out technology to our sales organization, our partners, and our global distributors, one of the things that we get hyper-focused on is adoption. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. So I'm always looking for useful frameworks. The BaaS model is a disease pathology framework for new product releases, and it looks at the parameters of kind of how disease passes through a population, and to give you some sense of what the various levers are that you can pull around new product deployments. So fundamentally, it's how big is the population, how frequently does the population interact with each other, and does the new product have this sort of innate sort of transfer rate between the population. To me, when you think about the transfer rate and the how many people in the population are either immune or potentially susceptible to the product, like that's kind of getting at the core of, did you design a user-friendly, easy to engage with product?
Right.
And that if we do it successfully, you really reduce the amount of training required to educate everybody, because it just passes through the population. It's very intuitive. And there's a lot of great examples out there of companies that have done this very successfully. One that I give my team frequently is like Match.com was the first to kind of get out there and make online relationship matching happen.
Yes.
But Tinder, who actually was also an IAC property, they rethought how people would actually go through that process of matching, and the swipe left, swipe right thing completely changed the game.
Right.
So it seems trivial, but that user experience and the intuitive nature of the product that you're developing makes a big difference in terms of whether or not these are successes in the organization. So again, go back to what we're doing. We're using the best third-party technologies. We're riding a couple megatrends, one of which is everybody has mobile devices. They like to consume vis-a-vis apps, so we're piggybacking off of that trend. We're also using the API connectivity that's available through these data sets and visualization technologies, analytic technologies. We're putting it together very quickly. We're deploying it, and we're getting that feedback loop going as quickly as possible so that we know who the winners are and who the losers are. We're not going to have perfect apps across every scenario, but if we can do it very quickly, see where the winners are, we can develop and deploy the resources accordingly.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny. It makes me think of a saying that, simple scales and complex fails.
Keep it simple, straightforward.
That's right. Yeah. One of the other examples that we had talked about when we were sort of preparing for our time together was you had mentioned Gmail.
Yeah.
As such a brilliant way that they rolled out Gmail. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, Gmail, there's some other, so social currency, right? So that's another attribute of like why people pass things through a population. So people, if they're invited to participate in something and they feel like it's exclusive, and you could do this with customers, if they feel like it's exclusive, they're prone to tell somebody, hey, you know what, I just got invited to this thing, it's really cool. If it's really cool,
yes,
it's really cool, you should check it out. And then the fact that people can't just naturally get it when they want it creates
right.
a little bit of, again, like a attraction and a buzz.
Right.
And we've done that consistently over the last year and a half around key initiatives that we want to roll out to the broader organization. It's not just, hey, everybody's going to get it. We'll start with a small pool of people, test it, kind of get a buzz going around it,
yes,
and tease it, and then, again, just helps to amplify the virality of the
yes.
pass through the population.
Yes, I can share a little story that I was on a couple boards with a gentleman named Michael Jones, who was one of the co-founders of a company called Keyhole, which was eventually purchased by Google and became Google Earth. And I remember when Gmail came out, I was sort of looking through my directory to find out everybody that had a Google address, and I'm emailing them because I couldn't get an invite to Gmail. So I was emailing everyone saying, please get me in. So that's my real experience.
Yep. And we have a big sales force too, so
yes.
our sales teams are constantly looking for the next tool.
Yes.
So I'm not saying, we absolutely want to be in support of the top, stakeholders across the organization, give them what they need when they need it.
Yes.
But at times, releasing it over a phased period of time and teasing it does help create more adoption buzz.
Good. So with the little bit of time we have left, talk a little bit about what's next for you. You've clearly got a great platform strategy. You're rolling out really useful apps, transformational apps across the organization. What's next for you?
Well, I think what's interesting is there's a lot of discussion by Mariana about how critical data is. And we're in a data business. I mean, real estate is all data driven. It's pricing, it's availability, it's hidden spaces, it's who's in the market. There's tons of data sets that are critically important. And for our clients, data is critically important. They need to know who's where, who's using what their satisfaction is of the various different assets, where the talent is, at what cost. So bringing together that data is a big initiative, and taking unstructured data to structured data is a big constraint in terms of speed and getting the whole platform, to have as much lift as possible. So the real estate industry typically is, PDF and written documents.
Yes.
And we're spending a lot of time thinking about very efficient ways to take that unstructured data, turn it into structured data so that we can continue to power all of these fantastic analytics and the consulting that goes alongside that with our people. So that's a really interesting area. There's some great AI that we're using to help kind of create additional power on a per person basis in terms of running that process. And I'm very excited about where we're headed with that.
Good. So that's one. I know I said one more because I have one more question.
Absolutely.
You just spoke about the AI ML, how you're thinking about that. Jack used a word, or he was talking yesterday about getting apps to the edge, and for me that means not just mobile devices, but it's really about APIs, SDK. How it's an integration story, it's an app story. It's also sort of really driving the intelligence at that edge. Have you thought much about that?
Yeah, I mean, the power of an app, I think, is a really interesting conversation. So I think it's very easy to sort of dismiss and say, well, apps are just, it's because the iPhone and it's just kind of a different way to consume. But what's really happened with apps is a lot of the tools that we used 10 or 15 years ago that took extensive training have been rethought in a very intuitive, like swipe-friendly manner.
Yes.
And Instagram's a great example of that, right? Like if you think about the photo editing technology that existed 10 or 15 years ago, you would have to have taken, a course on it, and Instagram effectively made everybody a photo and video editor.
Yes.
Companies like Canva are doing the same thing. So the whole concept of taking these legacy technologies and really rethinking them in the new context of devices, I think is fascinating. And I really do push on our team to think that way, because we developed this platform with the app focus, not just because we wanted to make it kind of easy for people to figure out, but also because it forces the team to really think through what's the use case that you're designing for, and how are you making it easy for the end user to execute on their motivations.
Yes.
And to me, that's the crux of what is going to define the successful insights companies versus the not successful insights companies, because everybody knows this is happening, and everybody has the frameworks from McKinsey and the frameworks from Forrester. But that's great. You got to do it, and you got to win, and you got to have people, and you don't win unless people adopt.
That's
and
right.
People won't adopt unless it's a great user experience.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you. I very much enjoyed my time. Thank you, Patrick, very much.
Thank you.